Good afternoon and happy Sunday to wherever you are watching this. On this edition of The More You Know, I would like to talk a little bit more about the recent CDC ruling for moratorium on evictions in the United States. There are some misnomers that are going around, and I would like to clarify them if I can. On August 4th, a federal judge in Washington denied the request to stop the moratorium, eviction moratorium, that is. It has become a flashpoint of controversy for the Biden administration. Again, they're wondering whether the policy keeping millions of Americans in their homes would withstand further legal actions. Basically, what that means, what U.S. District Judge Dabney Frederick issued in his 13-page opinion blocking the request by a group of Alabama landlords, is that he will uphold the eviction moratorium. However, he is hesitant because he feels as though it's leaving the federal government open to further litigation by landlords. Some landlords in some states believe that it's unfair to them because they are the ones that are held liable from their lenders, i.e., mortgage companies, for the mortgage. And if the mortgage companies aren't also put on a moratorium, then where does that leave them? Either foreclosure and or bankruptcy. So a little bit about Nancy Pelosi, and excuse me, Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi and Chairwoman Maxine Waters' bill introduced to Congress to put a stay on evictions is because of the Delta variant, number one. Number two, because we are coming up on the winter months. And as we all know, flu season runs rampant during the winter months, and especially when you're experiencing a worldwide pandemic flu. So everyone on the other side of the argument, which is for allowing people to stay in their homes, is suggesting that if we don't do this, then we'll just have millions of Americans being evicted and nowhere to go, homeless. It's going to put more pressure on the population. While the other side is arguing, well, what about the landlords? Each side does have valid arguments depending on which side you're in. Now, the landlords have challenged the legality of the policy and asked the court to lift the judge-ordered stay on the eviction moratorium after the Biden administration's decision to renew a modified version of the order on August 3rd. The decision points out what the judge said, that it's shaky legal ground on which the national moratorium stands, arguing that the policy represents government overreach. And we understand that the Republicans, generally speaking, do not want the government in their personal business. So it's an interesting argument on both sides. I'd like to share a video with you that highlights a congresswoman from Ohio who was very adamant about the stay. She originally wanted the stay of eviction to go through December 31st for obvious reasons. Again, we're not sure what's going to happen with the Delta variant, but more so also because she was once homeless herself.
Housing advocates are warning that millions of Americans could soon lose their homes in the wake of the CDC's eviction moratorium expiration this past weekend. The CDC froze evictions in September to help protect people who were behind on rent during the pandemic. Last week, the White House said it was up to Congress to renew the ban, citing June's Supreme Court ruling. But House lawmakers adjourned Friday's session without a deal. They're now on a 7-week summer recess. As many as 11 million people in the U.S. are currently behind on rent, according to data from the Center on Budget and Policy. The hardest hit region is the Southeast, with close to 30% of renters in Mississippi and South Carolina behind last month. Missouri Congresswoman Cori Bush is among a group of progressive Democrats protesting the lapse by sleeping on the U.S. Capitol steps. Representative Bush experienced homelessness herself before she became a lawmaker. Here's how she framed her push for action.
In the midst of a global deadly pandemic, how do we force people out of their homes and put them in situations where we know that that can be deadly? The lawmakers in this country, we have to act. So we have asked for the White House and the CDC to work together, and we need an eviction moratorium. We've asked for House leadership to reconvene the House. Bring us back. Bring us back. We need to know that we have the 218 votes. Let's get this done. And the thing is, these things can happen simultaneously. We need the bill. We need an actual bill, the bill that is on the table that Chairwoman Maxine Waters has introduced, that would be an eviction moratorium through December 31st. We need to at least start there. I want to see that strengthened. I want to see a moratorium through the end of the pandemic, but we at least need to start with the bill that we have.
And that was Representative Cori Bush from the state of Ohio. Obviously, we did not get the bill passed through until December 31st, and instead the moratorium will expire on October 3rd of 2021. It does apply in the United States counties experiencing substantial and high levels of community transmission levels of C19. One of the other misnomers is that because this moratorium has been put in place, that it is a end-all be-all, meaning if you are late and or past due or will become past due up until October 3rd, that you can just stay in your home. That is a misnomer. This is a voluntary program. I will read what the CDC, and it is guidelines from the CDC, but I will also read what the bill says, and then we'll talk about it. So this is a voluntary program created and an alternative to evictions when both tenants and landlords agree to participate. That's a key word, when both tenant and landlord. So it is not an all-in moratorium. The landlord has to agree. In addition, once the tenant and the landlords agree in court to pursue state assistance, eviction proceedings can be delayed for up to 60 days. If the application is approved, the tenant can remain in their home and the landlord will receive a lump sum payment for the past due rent and late fees at that point. The eviction case is dismissed and does not become public record, but landlords can decide at any time during the 60-day period to restart the eviction process. So I want to make that very clear. Both landlord and tenant have to agree. The landlord has to file for eviction. Both tenant and landlord have to show up in front of a civil judge. The judge has to approve it. And at that point, you will be able to stay in your home for 60 days. So it's not an easy talk to my landlord. They say, okay, no, you have to go through legal proceedings. You have to have an eviction on the books for the moratorium to be put in place. Therefore, so the landlord can get their monies owed to them for the mortgage. In addition, the landlord does not get the monies that day. So it has been reported that some landlords are opting out of the moratorium because they no longer have any more time to wait with their lender, i.e. mortgage company. So they don't have 60, 90, 120 days to wait for the federal government to give them the money. So they are opting out because either they have another tenant that is willing to pay immediately, and or they are trying to sell the property that has now become a burden. So again, I want to stress to you guys, if you have family, friends, co-workers, and or strangers that are experiencing eviction or coming up on eviction, and your response to them is, you'll be okay because the moratorium is in place. That's not exactly true. Both have to agree. They have to be evicted by paper. They have to show up at court, and the judge has to place the moratorium. So it's a little bit more cumbersome operation that than we are being led to believe. And again, if the landlord does not agree, then the moratorium will not happen and those people will still be evicted. In addition, um, there have been some reports that some tenants are so far behind that some landlords are evicting the tenant through paper. They both go to court, they receive the moratorium, they get their monies for the rent and the past due rent. However, the tenant is still not working, so they immediately become past due again. And then the landlord will evict them because one of the clauses in the moratorium is that any time throughout that 60-day period, the landlord is able to restart the eviction process. So I just wanted to bring that to you today because the more we know, well, the more we know. I urge you all to continue to wear your mask, continue to be safe, vaccinated or not. Continue to be kind to one another, to understand that everybody is in different financial situations, different socioeconomic backgrounds, and that it's still a pandemic out here and there's still some residual effects for millions of Americans. I bid you guys a good day, and I pray that you all are safe with a solid roof over your heads and that you're able to look forward to the future when this will just be a distant memory. Thank you for joining the Sassy Show, and the more you know.